Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters, your Magic the Gathering source that helps you command your budget. This show and episodes like this one are possible thanks to viewers like you. If you're looking for an easy way to help support this show, make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Also, hit that bell notification icon so you don't miss any new episodes. You can also go check out our playmats and other merchandise at thecommandersquarters.com. Another easy way to support this show is with our TCG player affiliate links. So whether you're buying a deck or individual cards, you can use this general link right here or one in the description. And the final way that you can support this show is by supporting us directly by becoming a patron. There are many benefits to being a patron, and I truly couldn't do this without all their support. Hello and welcome to the Commander's Quarters studio. I'm your host, Mitch, and this is Eddie.
Hello there.
So Eddie is joining me today for a quick take on I'm not sure what the name of this precon is. The Rakdos Precon. That one. I'm not sure what clever name they came up with it.
I'm not sure either.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rakdos Precon for the Dungeons & Dragons Adventures of the Forgotten Realms. That is all a mouthful, but yeah, we're just basically going to talk about all the new cards from that precon for Commander. Not going to talk about the reprints in this episode. Yeah. We're just going to jump in and kind of give you our thoughts on the new cards and kind of maybe what kinds of decks they might work well in, if they're good, if they're garbage, and yeah, let's get going.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so actually, ironically, the very first one that I'm going to talk about, we're not going to talk about for too long, with Kara the Eye Tyrant, who I believe in my episode on it, I called Cuddles, because at that point we had only seen the Japanese version of it. And in that episode, if you want to check it out, I give you kind of like the entire breakdown of the commander, kind of how I'd build around it. Eddie, if you want to give your quick thoughts on it, you can, if you'd like.
Yeah. So this is the Rakdos 5 mana 5/5 Beholder. Whenever you attack a player, you tap that creature, they control, and it gets goaded. Has some other life loss synergies with it. I'm always a big fan of goad.
Oh, yeah.
The multiplayer social aspect is something that I love about the game. So goad is a mechanic that I really enjoy. Obviously, it loses some value in the late game when you're in a 1v1 scenario.
I force you to attack me.
Darn. So yeah, I think it's a sweet card. It's favorably costed, totally a playable card.
Yep.
I'm not going to be knocking down the format by any means, but definitely fun to bust out on those more casual games.
You can kind of break people out of that, turtling effect where people
that happens.
Just turtle up and take my time. And instead, it's like, no, go attack someone else.
Yep, and it allows you to get through, so that's nice too.
Absolutely. Okay, now to a card that I haven't talked about yet, and actually, I don't believe I've read this one yet because I was just making my last episode on Lorcan. The new. We'll get to that one here in a bit. Eddie's gone through all these cards. Eddie just popped over after I finished that last episode, so things are a bit hectic. But Bag of Devouring.
Bag of Devouring. So it's a 1 mana, just 1 black pip artifact, so only can go in black inclusive decks. We've got whenever you sacrifice another non-token artifact or creature, exile it. It has 2 abilities. The first one is pay 2 and tap it to sacrifice another artifact or creature as part of the cost, and if you do that, you get to draw a card. Obviously, when you sacrifice an artifact or creature, it'll trigger that first ability, as long as it's not a token. The second ability is 3 and tap, sacrifice Bag of Devouring. You roll a D10, so no D20s here, just D10. Mm-hmm. Return up to X cards from among cards exiled with Bag of Devouring to their owner's hands, where X is the result of that dice roll. Yeah. So my first reading of this was pretty good. Like, I don't think it's gonna be an incredible powerhouse, but in long games, if you get it down early, it's not a free sacrifice outlet, which obviously is nice to have, and it's limited to once per turn generally, since you have to tap to activate it. But over time, like if you do this 3 or 4 turns. It's a card draw engine. It enables sacrifice if your deck is an aristocratic type build of artifacts as well, which you don't necessarily see on some other sacrifice outlets. A lot of those are limited to creatures. And of course, you have that kind of what some people think is a fun game of chance. Like you could roll 1 on your D10 and only get one of those cards back. You could roll 10 and get a whole lot of card advantage out of this.
Yeah, there's a potential huge payoff from this. And actually, really quick, I just want to mention too, I think this is the first time on a card that we've seen it mention D10, I believe. I mean,
all the other ones.
We've seen D20 up till now, but this is a D10. So all of you Dungeons & Dragons players out there, you're now going to take advantage of all the dice that you already have. Any Magic players out there, go have fun getting new dice.
You're going to flaunt your swag, your metal dice that you brought just for this occasion.
Yeah, when seeing this card, the first thing I definitely thought was Aristocrats. You can get a huge payoff off of this. Obviously, you don't want this to be your main sacrifice outlet that you're going to be out there because, again, with Aristocrat-style strategies, you generally want that free sacrifice outlet so you can sacrifice as many creatures as you want to whenever you want to. Yes, that is a nice kind of backup. Okay, I'll pay 2 mana, tap, sacrifice something, and to draw a card. That's good. But yeah, that potential payoff can be huge. Again, that's kind of like what's that white spell that brings back everything, that just died this turn or whatnot.
On face reward.
Face reward, something like that. Yeah, exactly. It can be kind of that, longer term. Obviously, it's not all at once, and you don't even know how much you're getting back. But yeah, it can be that huge play where I sacrifice all these creatures with my free sacrifice out that I've got in play. They're gone, and then, I get a lot of Blood Artist triggers or whatnot from those, and then all of a sudden, I pay 3, I tap, I spin the wheel, roll the dice, and then, I might just get all 10 things back, or I'll get 8 things back or whatnot. You can get a lot of value out of it.
Yeah, so for 1 mana, really its biggest downside is that it's taking the place of another card in your deck. So it's a cool card if you have a lot of synergies going on with this, or you just like the flavor of the Bag of Devouring and Bag of Holding, really want a D&D esque card. This will fit the bill really well.
Absolutely.
Next
one. Dance Macabre. I believe that's Macabre, right? Not Macabre.
You got it.
I got it right. Look at me go. All right. A sorcery for 3 black. Each player sacrifices a non-token creature. Roll a D10 and add the toughness of the creature you sacrifice this way. 1 through 14. Return a creature card. Put it into a graveyard. I can't talk. Return a creature card. Put into a graveyard this way. We got it. To the battlefield under your control. 15 plus. Return up to 2 creature cards. Put into graveyard this way to the battlefield under your control. Yeah, that seems like a kind of a big potential payoff. I mean, obviously, most of the time you're probably going to hit that 1 through 14, but you do get the toughness added onto the D20 that you rolled.
Yeah, so let's do just a quick take here. So you're rolling a D20, not D10s or anything like that. So on average, you're going to roll about a 10. So then if you think okay, if I sacrifice a creature with toughness 5, then the odds are actually pretty good that you're going to get that 15 plus result. If you're playing something that really cares about toughness, I'm thinking something like Doran the Siege Tower.
Oh, yeah.
You're going to be running some creatures that'll almost guarantee that you're getting 2 creatures back.
What's the tree, whatever, Tree of Perdition or whatever?
Oh, yeah.
You sacrifice 13. That with 13. You've got a very low percentage chance.
You need to roll a 2.
You need to roll just a 2. See, if you hit the 1, unfortunately, that is a critical failure.
Yeah.
But if you roll anything other than that, you can get 2 creatures back. And 5 mana to make, all of your opponents sacrifice something. You lose something too, but you can get it back. And you get 2 creatures, whichever ones you want out of that. That's nice.
It's nice. I mean, the opponents get to choose which creature they're sacrificing. You don't get to choose, but it can't be a token, so that's nice. They're actually having to sacrifice something that they, might have some value in.
Yeah, that is nice to see that on a card. I'm not sure how many other things say, sacrifice a non-token creature for, opponents, which is nice to kind of force it out.
Yeah, so a good card, 5 mana, and sorcery speed is obviously a little limiting. There's a lot of stuff you can start doing at 5 mana.
Yep.
So maybe you want a more reliable effect, but dice rolling's fun. This is generally going to get you some good value. It'll clear the board a little bit. Really good kind of tempo play.
Yeah, I was going to say, when you see these cards that do have that D10 or D20, they're probably not going to be really overpowered because, again, there is that kind of game of chance where you can't always get just an overpowered effect. But if you do happen to hit it, then you can get a really powerful effect.
All right. Next card. So this one is pretty sweet. The art on it is intense.
Very.
Good job, Nicholas Gregory.
Great name, too.
Death Tyrant.
Death Tyrant.
It's 4 and a black for a creature beholder skeleton. It's a 4/6 with menace. It has the flavor text ability of negative energy code. I'm pretty sure Death Tyrant is an actual creature in D&D mythology that I would imagine has the same ability.
We'll check with our Dungeon Master, Rob, later.
Oh, yeah. We can totally do
that.
Rob. So it has a static ability. Whenever an attacking creature you control or a blocking creature an opponent controls dies, you create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. And it has an activated ability for 5 and a black to return Death Tyrant from your graveyard to the battlefield tapped. So it's very resilient. It doesn't prevent itself from dying, indestructible might. But
it's like a reassembling skeleton, but a higher cost for it, essentially.
Yeah, and it is a skeleton. I think skeletons are actually getting some love here.
A beholder skeleton.
Beholder skeleton.
Yeah,
so notably, when I first started this card, it doesn't have a combat damage trigger. You don't even actually have to hit an opponent for this. It just cares about you trying to attack. Generally speaking, that's not it makes it more reliable, I guess I would say. So you might not be able to get through an opponent's wall of creatures, but it's still probably in your best interest to make the attempt to attack, because worst case scenario, you get a 2/2 zombie token. This doesn't say whenever a non-token attacking creature you control dies, so it'll keep feeding itself.
With your zombies, absolutely. Also, I don't believe that this one specifies that it has to be in your combat. It could just be an opponent's blocking creature blocking another opponent, giving them a zombie. Is that correct?
Yeah. I mean, for you, if it's your creatures that are dying, it has to be an attacking creature you control. But if an opponent blocks, player 2's creature and dies, you'd still get a zombie.
Yeah. So
the Death Tyrant's like, I see you.
Yeah, cool. I see all death. I'm the Tyrant of death. So yeah, definitely. I mean, certain decks that want to get out a bunch of tokens or whatnot, maybe swing out. Some very aggressive decks could want this potentially. So
yeah, one thing that I did notice is it creates a zombie creature token. It seems like Wizard still is kind of not really wanted to cross the lines between skeleton tribal and zombie tribal. Like, they didn't want to make a skeleton token just for this card, but I feel like it's coming at some point.
You would think
they just want to have a cohesive zombie skeleton deck.
I guess.
Yeah.
But okay.
All right.
Next one.
Let's go.
We've got Grim Hireling. It's going to be a 3/2 tiefling rogue that costs 3 and a black. It says whenever one or more creatures you control deal combat damage to a player, create 2 treasure tokens. And keep in mind, it does say 1 or more. So basically, you have 1 creature hit or 5 creatures hit. It does not matter. You're still just getting 2.
Unless there's 4 people at the table, it triggers off of each player.
Okay, very true.
So you could get a maximum in a 4-player game of 6 treasure tokens.
Thank you for clarifying that. But you cannot get multiple on 1 player. Okay. By paying a black, you can sacrifice X treasures, and target creature gets -X/-X until end of turn. Activate only as a sorcery. I mean, that seems like a pretty powerful, temporary ramp engine for you if you've got a lot of ways to get your creatures through.
Yeah, and I mean, Tiefling isn't really a supported tribe. It's pretty much just in D&D, but Rogue is certainly supported.
Absolutely.
So like Anawan the Rune Sage, tends to be unblockable rogue tribal. So I see this card being played in there immediately, and it's pretty recent. So a lot of people have that deck. Treasure tokens are great. This one doesn't have any evasion on its own, but if you're willing to pay that second ability and sacrifice some treasures, you can help your other rogues get through.
Yeah, I mean, this is just me personally looking at the card. I don't think you're going to be activating that second part a lot because you are utilizing a lot of potential mana then. Like, again, let's say something's got 5 toughness. I'm going to pay a black mana, and then I've got to sacrifice 5 treasures, which could have been 5 mana for something else just to get rid of 1 creature. That's 6 mana for 1 creature. I don't think so. I mean, again, in dire straits, absolutely. If you need to utilize that, you can. But I think most of the time, you're just going to be saving up those treasures to use them for other things.
Yeah, although it does get rid of things that are pretty tough. It's -X, so it gets rid of indestructible things, which is pretty tough sometimes.
Yeah, if you're playing against a Toski player, goodbye, Toski.
One little treasure.
You like your little creatures coming through and hitting, so do I.
Yeah, it could be actually good if you're in an Aristocrats deck. I mean, what is it, Revel in Riches? Like if you're running that card, like a treasure themed deck could be fun.
Pitiless Plunderer, that kind of stuff. Yeah.
So if you have extra treasures laying around, it becomes more reasonable. But I think, you're playing it for that first ability.
I think, the temporary ramp that this can give you can just be absolutely absurd. I mean, extra free 6 mana, potentially up to that amount a turn. That can be really nice.
Yeah, especially if you're like playing evasive creatures. So, it's a
Again,
good card. 4 mana is a bit high, but totally seems playable if you're either in Rogue Tribal or a lot of like maybe a Yuriko deck that has a lot of evasion.
Yep. Or I mean, again, the Beholder that we talked about earlier. What's its name again? Karazakar. That thing. I talked about a lot of like small creatures that you might want to have in the deck that can get through or unblockable or whatnot. That could be a place to put it as well.
Yeah. Cool card.
All right. Next up, you need to tackle this one.
Yeah, I love this card. So this is Hellish Rebuke. 2 and a black for an instant. It says, until end of turn, permanents your opponent's control gain. When this permanent deals damage to the player who cast Hellish Rebuke, sacrifice this permanent, you lose 2 life. And the flavor text is, then we burn together.
So Hellish Rebuke is something that I've heard Eddie say plenty of times because we also play D&D and he is a bard. So
yeah, we got a bard tiefling over here. So I've definitely cast Hellish Rebuke a lot. I'm so glad that the actual card it's a sweet card.
That's a pretty cool card. Yeah, you point out something really cool to me too. So let everyone know why this card is effective, even if you die.
Yeah, so this is a perfect like spite play in a way because what the card does is it gives the creatures your opponents control this ability on the creature. So then it's no longer like under your control. So for example, if you get hit by 20 goblins, each of those goblins gains this ability. It's an instant, so you can do this after your opponents declare attackers. And even if you only have 20 life and you're going to die, you can cast Hellish Rebuke. They all gain that ability. They deal combat damage, and all these triggers go on the stack, and you don't control the triggers. So even if you die,
doesn't matter.
That goblin player is still going to get hit for 2 life, and they sacrifice their entire army. Yeah. So, I mean, granted, against
2 life, wouldn't it be?
Well, 40 life.
40 life,
in that scenario.
So the Krenko player is very dead.
More than likely, yeah. And so it can be, especially if you're playing like I have a Queen Marchesa deck that's kind of all around these types of mind games, politics.
Never let
incentives.
Eddie convince you of anything when you're playing against Eddie in that deck.
It's so fun. Sometimes it actually is in your benefit.
Yes, sometimes it is.
I'll do legit
Just like my
favors.
Feldergrift deck, too.
Yeah. And so I think it's a sweet card because once you play it one time and someone gets blown out, forever on, if you're playing against other people in your play group, they're going to be like, does he have it? It's that 3 mana. If he has 1 black mana and like 3 total mana available, like you have to wonder, like, is it worth attacking him?
Is it? Yeah. Is it going to happen? Yeah. And even again, if you get taken out, let's say there's 3 players left, you know, you and 2 other players, you get taken out. That player might just get taken out from this spell too, and then other player just happens to win because they're just sitting there not doing anything.
And even if you're not doing like these kind of wonky scenarios, it gives the creature the sacrifice clause. So again, just like the -X to -X ability we were talking about, gets rid of things like Avacyn, gets rid of things like Toski, like, and it's at instant speed, so they might feel kind of comfortable going into combat, getting into the red zone, and then you get to basically use this as a removal at that point. So even if you're only hitting 1 or 2 things, if they're really impactful, hard to remove things, might be worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could even, I'm not sure how many scenarios this is going to happen in, but you could even just use that as kind of a fog ahead of time. You're like, hey, I'm just going to cast this so you don't attack me because I would die. I don't want to die, but here, if you hit me with any of your things, they're going away and you're losing life. So you could as a deterrent if you really want to, but it's much more fun to do it as like a, you lost all your things, oh no.
Yeah. So I think it kind of hits a lot of notes. It's not going to see play in like competitive or anything, but in low power, mid, even maybe high power, casual, definitely going to see this card.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you've got a friend that's got a token deck, use it against them.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, the next one up, I think we're just going it's not even alphabetical. I don't know what order this is in. Whatever. Lorcan, Warlock Collector. This is the one I was talking about earlier when I just did an episode on it. So at some point, go check out that episode. Eddie, if you want to give your thoughts on it, go for it.
Yeah, so I won't belabor the point, but yeah, it's a 7 mana, 6/6 flying legendary creature devil, so notably not a demon. In D&D, those are very different types of creatures. And I really like the card. I think 7 mana is very steep. Might make it a reanimator target, but there's a lot of other options for that. I really like it because it depends on what your opponents are playing, because you get your opponent's creatures back, and devils traditionally in Magic are very like chaotic creatures. You know, we've got, what is it? Zerzoth is another one.
I think that's a name. There's a lot of names.
Yeah, Zerzoth Chaos Rider. Yeah, so any devils really lean into that chaos, but not like warp worldy chaos necessarily. More just, we're gonna sling damage
chaos,
and
chaos.
Yeah. So I like that it seems pretty on flavor for that.
Kind of like a great betrayal in your command zone, essentially ish. Better in some ways, worse in some ways, but yeah, it can be a fun one. Anyways, go check out that episode. We won't hammer on that too much just in case you've already seen that one. Let's move on to Fiendlash. Fiendlash is an artifact equipment that costs 1 in red. It says equipped creature gets +2/+0 and has reach. Whenever equipped creature is dealt damage, it deals damage equal to its power to target player or planeswalker, and it's got equip for 2 in a red.
Yeah, I really like the art on this one. It's pretty metal, literally. So I think it's a good card. It kind of reminds me of another card that's been up on this channel a couple times recently, Blazing Sunsteel. Is that it?
I think that's it. Again, you were the one who pointed that one out to me.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So it's another red artifact. So I kind of like this thing that they're doing in the last year or two, where they're making artifacts that have a color identity that kind of lean into that. I think that's a good way to keep them balanced, because you have the sort of X and X cycle that can go literally any deck. And because of that, they've been a little hesitant to print new colorless artifact equipments that are like really powerful, because they kind of have that same feel. But by limiting it to a certain slice of the color pie, they can lean into what that color wants to do. They can make it a little more powerful because it's not able to be in every single deck. So same thing with this Fiendlash. I like that it gives reach. It kind of, it's extending this weapon.
I can block anything now. Well, except for Shadow and Horsemanship. And all these other things, but a lot of things.
If you're on a horse, like, what are you gonna do?
I was supposed to stop you. I can stop that thing flying, but not a horse.
Never. So I think the ability is really sweet. There's a lot of cards that you can build around to make this into a combo or just make it especially effective. The first 2 things that I thought of were, like, for example, Niv Mizzet. You can, whenever you draw a card, I think the newest one is Perun. You could equip this to Niv Mizzet whenever a person plays an instant or sorcery. You draw a card. Whenever you draw a card, you can deal damage. So you could basically have Niv Mizzet point that damage at himself. And then since he gets +2/+0, I think he's a 4/4/5/5, something like that.
5/6/6, something like that.
Either way, you're scaling up the damage a lot. So you deal 1 damage to him, and you can deal like 6 damage to a player. And then that can trigger a few times a turn. Once the turn passes, his toughness comes back. You can just kind of really dish out some damage quickly.
A lot of powerful things you can do with this.
And it's also really good in Voltron decks, because Voltron decks, I mean, obviously there's trample and some evasion artifacts that you're going to be playing in those, but any effect that really dissuades your opponents from blocking is good.
Oh, yeah.
And so this equipment basically says, you're welcome to block, but I'm going to deal the damage anyway.
I'm going to ping you for a ton, even
Yeah.
if you block. Yeah, and don't block with more than one creature, or that's coming at you twice.
Yeah. Ooh. Yeah,
anytime
that's
dealt
true.
damage. Anytime,
anytime
dealt damage. So
I didn't
do
even
not
read it
team
that
block.
way.
Oh yeah. So yeah, you can dish out an absurd amount of damage with this. I mean, or if you're playing, a like Fire Song and Sunspeaker, or playing against that, and they have a board wipe, that's still going to trigger it as well. So yeah, there's plenty of ways that you can just dish out direct damage with this. Again, only to a player or planeswalker, not to creatures, but still,
that still finishes
free
people
damage
off.
to the face is going to be great. You basically kind of turn your creature into a stuffy doll-ish kind of.
Yeah, and I mean it scales with the creature's power really well. So
exactly.
if you're playing like Gishath, Sun's Avatar is in red, so it could play this. It also has a lot of enrage triggers, so you're incentivized to play like Pyrohemia type of effects. And so like you deal 1 damage to Gishath with this equipment on, and like Tada, you're dealing 9 damage out, and you can do that pretty often. So it's a sweet card. I don't think it goes in every red deck, but it certainly has applications, and in those applications it's going to be strong. So that's a design space that I think is
and if you've got a bunch of Tims, a bunch of pingers in your deck, just keep hitting your creature and keep pinging out damage. So.
Yeah, cool card.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next up we've got Reckless Endeavor. And this is one you point out to me, so you need to read this one.
Yeah, I'll take this one. So Reckless Endeavor, 5 red, so 7 total for a sorcery. Roll 2 D12. So D12s are another dice that you'll need to bring with you.
Wizards is probably going to have just in their online shop, okay, now yes, buy your D12s, buy your D10s from us. There's the specific ones.
I can't remember if it's been said or not, but it would be interesting if like these precons come with
you would
the
think
dice.
They'd have to. I
mean, it's kind of like dungeons where you need the dungeon card to really remember what they do. But
okay.
Anyway, nevertheless, roll 2 D12 and choose 1 result. So you're not like combining the 2 D12 here. Reckless Endeavor deals damage equal to that result to each creature, and then you create a number of treasure tokens equal to the other result. So let's kind of play this out. You're rolling D12, so average, 6 or 7 is going to be the result that you get most often. So let's say you roll a 6 and a 7. You get to choose one of those numbers. So let's say there's a 7 toughness creature on board, so you choose the 7 as the damage to get that board wipe really effective, and then you get 6 treasures back. So this is a 7 mana spell. So you basically, you still need 7 mana to cast it in the first place, but at the end of the day, you gain 6 mana back, so you can still do other things on your turn more than likely.
Absolutely. On top of just blowing up the board.
Yeah, you might roll, let's go to the other extreme. You might roll a 12 and a 1. So, let's say you don't really need the board wipe, so you choose 1 as the damage, and then you get 12 treasures.
You just ramped 5 mana,
This is now a ritual
exactly,
in that scenario.
The first card this reminded me was like Brass's Bounty, essentially, with the treasures that this can give you. It can generate you more mana than actually even put into it. But with a board wipe kind of slapped on that with some random chance involved. So,
Yeah, I think I've played a few different Storm deck variants with Brass's Bounty is kind of a finisher card to really get you to the end game, and I could see this filling a similar role. Like if you were to reverberate this or any of the other copy effect type spells, you roll new D12 any time that you do that. So if you get 2 copies, you could certainly end up mana positive at the end of this. So sweet card, only deals damage to creatures, so it's not going to finish players off. But for example, I have a Fire Song and Sunspeaker deck.
I was going to say, I'm expecting to see this card quite a bit.
yeah, it'll probably get included there. Again, it's dice rolling, so it's variance. You might roll 2 1s and get 1 treasure, deal 1 damage, and it'd be a whiff. You might get 2 12s.
Well, you also might not want to kill your Fire Song and Sunspeaker. You might want to hope that they're alive, but you end up rolling, above their toughness as well, too, which there is a risk to it.
Yeah, there's a fun factor here. I think this hits a good balance between being good because you get the choice of the 2 dice, so you can kind of calibrate it after you see the results. But also definitely not pushed. I mean, this isn't a new, what's the 1 mana?
Blasphemous Act.
Blasphemous Act. Yeah, this isn't
not 1 mana, that's 9 mana.
Is it though? All right, Share the Spoils is the next card. Why don't you take this one?
It's an enchantment for 1 and a red, and it says, when it enters the battlefield or an opponent loses the game, exile the top card of each player's library. During each player's turn, that player may play a land or cast a spell from among cards exile with Share the Spoils, and they may spend mana as lower mana of any color to cast a spell. When they do, exile the top of their library. Yeah. This sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think my initial gut reaction is I'm not too hot on it. I do think the fun factor is certainly there. But it's kind of group huggy because you're giving people they're hitting their land drops more often. They're getting to cast spells. So if they're
what's not fun about group hug? Kaneo Santiro is gonna love this.
I don't think Kaneo Santiro does that right. They don't have black.
No black.
All right. Yeah, but no, I think it's a sweet card. I think in lower power decks that really if you love Gonti, if you love those types of effects, you're gonna love this
Playing
card.
Other players' spells.
Yeah, and I think that is fun. As far as how good it is, that's where my concern is.
No, it is not all that good. I mean, it is kind of interesting that as soon as another player loses the game, you get another card kind of added to it as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's more of a fun kind of gimmicky card. Again, outside of a group hug or a deck that's just looking to have some fun or whatnot, like I'm not sure what kind of strategy really wants this card. Because again, you are sharing that, like you said, you're sharing that card advantage with other people too.
Yeah, I mean, like if you're limited to mono red, like maybe it gains some value because it gives you card advantage too, and you otherwise don't have access to, like blue or black or green, I guess, card advantage.
Yeah, but now you're giving all those other colors access to the stuff too.
Yeah. So I think if you think this card sounds fun, if you like this type of effect, it's only 2 mana. So I mean, if you're down to 1 card in hand and this is the card, it's going to keep you going. Like the card says that anytime you cast a spell, you replace the spell. When a player does lose the game, all their cards are going to leave, like even cards in the exile zone. So just make sure you're reading that correctly. You don't retain access to those. Just each other player adds another card. And so, I kind of like the flavor of that. So like, for example, it enters, everyone exiles 1 card. So then at most there's 4 cards in the pile of loot in the spoils.
They must be shared.
And then 1 person dies, then each person exiles another card. So now there's 6 cards.
You're like looting that player's body.
Yeah, basically. I like the flavor of this the more that I hear it. So if you're down to a 2v2, like, and you've had this out since the first person lost the game, now you each have 4 cards in the pile of loot. So that is kind of fun.
It just kind of adds up. Yeah. It's going to lead to some very interesting games, especially if you get this out early. It's just going to be people are going to be like, oh, I had this plan, but now I've got access to that card, so I'm going to do that.
This seems like a red's Rite of Flourishing. Which is a often played card, mostly for the extra land drops, I would imagine. But
pug and
but if that's what you're looking for, this is a great card.
And go for it. All right, next up, something also pretty wacky. Go for it.
Wild Magic Sorcerer, 3 in a red, creature, orc, shaman for a 4/3. The first spell you cast from exile each turn has Cascade. Cascade is when you cast a spell, you flip cards from the top of your library until you hit a non-land that has lesser mana value than the initial spell, and you cast that card for free, put the rest on the bottom in a random order. So very purposefully, this does work well with other Cascade spells. Because when Cascade happens, you're casting it from exile, which is what this card is looking for its trigger.
Works with Suspend, works with
Rebound.
Foretell, Rebound. There's a lot of different things that you're casting from exile if you really look into it.
Yeah, even Golos cast from exile.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Absolutely.
So
that could be inclusion.
It sounds like a trigger that you're not going. If your deck isn't built around it, this is a bad card. It's only a 4/3 for 4. Orc and shaman aren't creature types that are really often built around. But if you're playing a deck that is built around any of those effects that we talked about, and especially if your deck can play on other people's turns, this isn't limited to just your turn. This is any turn. So
Cascading is like extra just free value.
So like Aegir's Maelstrom Wanderer, all those types of decks might want to consider this one.
When I first saw this commander and I read it, my first thought was, why isn't this a legendary card? Because I would love to build just kind of like, Suspend, Foretell, all these different kind of things, tribal, just around this commander. I think that'd be a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it is not. And that is okay.
I mean, that's what a Simic card would do. That's what a Modi Celebrant does.
That's true.
This isn't Simic, so we're not allowed.
True. If it's Simic, Simic gets the fun things. Mono red, not so much.
All right, we're near we got one more.
I think we got one more
set
like
of
column.
5. So we got 5 left. This one is pretty sweet. So why don't you take this?
Sure.
one?
Fevered Suspicion. So it's a sorcery for 6 black red, and it says each opponent exiles cards from the top of their library until they exile a non-land card. You may cast any number of spells from among those non-land cards without paying their mana costs, and it's got Rebound, which we just mentioned with the the Wild Magic Sorcerer, which basically Rebound is if you cast a spell from your hand, you exile it as it resolves. At the beginning of your next upkeep, you may cast this card from exile without paying its mana cost. Basically, this is getting you, 6 free spells, essentially, if you cast it for its 8 mana?
Yeah, 3 on the resolution of the first one, 3 more when it rebounds.
Again, assuming you've got 3 opponents that have not things other than just lands in their deck.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, again, this is very high variance. If you like those where you're playing opponents' cards against them, this is going to be a good potential finisher.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely, again, 8 mana is a lot, but again, in Commander, you can definitely get up to there.
Yeah, I mean, we talked, you have a Golos deck that likes big mana spells. Just be careful with Golos in particular, because when you activate Golos's ability, if you're casting it off that as opposed to hand, Rebound doesn't trigger.
Because you're not casting from your hand, you're casting from exile.
Right. So that's a little bit thing to take note of.
I mean, you're still getting 3 spells for free, though. And again, with
Yeah.
Golos, that's probably worth it, maybe. I don't know. It was a fun kind of
Get
splashy
like
effect.
3 Wayfarer's baubles.
Absolutely. And then you win. If you get
Yeah.
3 Wayfarer's
You've
baubles,
assembled
you just
Exodia.
win.
Yeah, so sweet card. A lot of beholders in this set based
Yeah.
on that art. But
in big mana decks, like a Joda deck could probably use this. Again, Joda, you are casting from your hand. You're just saving on the mana cost by 3. So yeah, you're basically just going to be getting 6 spells for 5 mana. That's pretty good.
Yep, I like it.
Yep, absolutely. Okay, move on to the last column. We've got all of our cards in 4 columns.
Ooh, this card is sweet.
It is.
Hurl through hell.
That is a fantastically metal name. Why was this not Kaldheim?
This would be sweet. So it's 2 red-black, so much more affordable than the last card. Instant. Exile target creature. Full stop. Until the end of your next turn, you may cast that card, and you may spend mana as though it were mana of any color to cast that spell.
Rakdos gets mind control.
Yeah, I mean, red has always been kind of the theft color. Black has been removal.
Well, temporary theft for red.
Most of the time, but yeah, this one you just get it. So instant speed, 4 mana is probably its biggest downside. 4
mana is a lot to kill one creature. It is exile, so that would probably be at a 3 mana, but even those 3 mana ones are probably more flexible, like exile a creature or a planeswalker. But,
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, so 4 mana is a decent amount. It is instant speed, not sorcery. I could have easily seen them playing it safe on this card and making it a sorcery, but thankfully they didn't. Exile gets rid of a lot of stuff. I mean, you still have to be able
to pay the amount of mana.
Right. So if you're exiling, an Avacyn for, 8, 9 mana, whatever. I think she's 8.
I think it's 8.
You can do that, so it gets rid of indestructible creatures.
Yep.
However, if you don't have the requisite mana, you only have until the end of
your next turn. Yeah.
So nicely, you don't have to do it the same turn that you
wouldn't have to have 12 mana for Avacyn on one turn. You're just paying 4 before your turn, and then you exile it, and then on your turn have 8.
Yeah, and so like in an ideal scenario, since this is an instant, you pass your turn with the 4 mana up, player takes a turn, the player to your right passes turn, and then you cast Hurl through Hell, targeting whatever you want.
Yep.
You untap, you cast the creature right away, and kind of get it has pseudo haste at that point, since, well, no, it wouldn't have haste because you still have to cast it on your turn, so never mind.
Unless the creature has haste, then it does have haste.
Right, and you're in red, so.
Absolutely.
No, it's a sweet card. It's very flexible.
Yeah, it is flexible because, again, you don't necessarily have to cast the creature. If it's just a big, scary creature that you don't really want on your side or want to invest the mana on, or you can't, you can still just get rid of it. Yeah,
and so one thing that I'm kind of curious to see how it works is if you exile a person's commander, anytime it changes zones, they can choose to put it into the command zone. So the rules interaction there, I doubt you could cast.
Think you could cast it.
Your opponent's commander, because it would be a different object once it changes.
Yeah, rules lawyers in the comments below, please let us know. But I don't think this would let you steal an opponent's commander because they could choose just to put in the command zone, and I don't think you could cast it from there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Maybe you could. This is kind of a weird rules territory spot. So
rules lawyers, help us out.
Yeah. Interesting card. Yeah. Probably you're going to see it every once in a while. It'll be useful to know how it interacts with commanders before we get too far.
Okay, bucknards. Everfull Purse, I think that's right. An artifact for 2. That's a name. That
old Bucknard.
Old Bucknard. Everyone knows Bucknard. All right. Artifact for 2. Pay 1, tap, roll a d4, and create a number of treasure tokens equal to the result. The player to your right gains control of Bucknard's Everfull Purse. That is fantastic.
D4s. So now you need
now
D10,
you need D4.
D12, D4s.
That's what Wizards is doing. They're just trying to get everyone to buy their dice now.
Yeah.
They're going to become a dice company.
Oh, they could probably sell boosters and get a random.
They are Dungeons and
6
Dragons.
times.
They definitely have it. Yeah.
Yeah, they're double dipping here.
Boosters of dice.
Yeah, boosters of dice. Get different guild combinations.
There you go.
God, I'm giving them ideas.
What about the card, not the dice? What about the card?
So my first reaction is it's not that good.
I mean, it's a group huggy kind of
group
fun
huggy
card.
type of card. I think it can play well in a few different decks that want it.
Mm-hmm.
If you're desperate for treasure tokens, you can roll a d4. You might just get 1 treasure back, but you could get up to 4. So it's like a pseudo ritual that way. I have a Brutaclad deck. I want to get as many tokens out as possible. Treasures are a good way to do it. This is a little too high variance for me.
Yeah, you roll a 1, the player to your right gets it, rolls a 4, and they're like, yeah, thanks for all the mana.
Yeah, and I mean, like, eventually, depending on how long the game goes, if people are playing along, they'll just keep it moving. But they might definitely just hold on to it and never activate its ability.
Not. Or maybe they've got something that can sacrifice an artifact, and they're like, okay, goodbye shenanigans. So.
Yeah, I think it gains interest in decks like Zedru the Great-Hearted.
I was going to say that one too.
Yeah,
like the donate decks actually just want to get rid of something. And Blim Comedic Genius as well.
Yeah, anything that gains value when your opponents have things that they don't own. could definitely see this
I
played.
think...
Plus, you get to say bucknard.
How many times do you get to do that?
Yeah.
Oh, we need a bucknard legendary creature soon. Okay.
One more thing before we move on. This is kind of probably not going to be relevant, but if you're playing a deck that utilizes a lot of blink, you can activate the ability, and holding priority with the ability on this deck, if you flicker bucknards Everfull Purse, it will re-enter as a different object, so you'll still get the treasures,
and it comes back and
it will just be under your control. So
that's
if you
not a fun way to. Don't listen, Eddie. Don't do that. That's not fun.
It's too many hoops to jump through. To be honest,
again, it's not good enough a card to jump through those hoops.
Yeah. So neat card. It's something that you could do if that's a deck that wants to do anyway. But
Here's a card that I really like seeing these types of cards. Ebony Fly. It's an artifact for 2. Enters battlefield tapped, and it taps for colorless. So we got another mana rock that costs 2 and taps for colorless. Budget players rejoice. Pay 4, roll a d6. Until end of turn, you may have Ebony Fly become an XX insect artifact creature with flying, where X is the result. I think that's really interesting. It says, until end of turn, you may have. So again, if you, let's say, rolled a 1 or a 2 and someone's got like an Hellish Rebuke in play, you don't just automatically have that become a creature and then it dies.
Yeah, that is
very interesting scenario, obviously, but like, I wouldn't think it would say you may have. Usually it's just, you do that. But that's probably why it's in there.
Yeah, and I mean, it's not cumulative. It's not like it's getting plus X. It's just changing its base power. So it's not like you can activate it, 10 times and have it be this ginormous ebony fly that's going to kill someone.
Whenever it attacks, another target attacking creature gains flying till end of turn. So, that's pretty nice as well. I mean, this is a utility mana rock, essentially, that can kind of help out with some other things. It can become a creature. It can help with flying for other creatures. That's pretty nice. And again, in my book, essentially, I like to see mana rocks that at least give you half the amount of mana that you put into them. So basically, again, a 2 mana rock has to give you at least 1 mana, essentially, like a Mind Stone.
And this enters tapped, so I think that's going to dissuade some players. But honestly, like as far as the budget perspective goes, it's still very good. That it enters tapped will probably push people away from it, which keeps the price down.
But as a budget player, I mean, I would much rather run this in most decks than a Locket, which gives me both my colors, which costs 1 more. Again, it's less that one's less efficient, though it does give you your color fixing. If you're in a 2-color deck, you're going to have ways to, fix your colors generally. You're going to get enough lands, or you're going to get another mana rock that helps you out. You're going to be fine. So, basically, it's a 2 mana rock option. Again, worse than other ones. Like, how would you compare this to, like, a Fractured Power Stone that literally just taps for colorless? Would you rather have this or the Fractured Power Stone?
I would rather have this. I think you're playing this card 80% as a 2 mana rock, and then 20% it's kind of like a bad Rogue's Passage.
Yeah.
You're paying for, it'll turn into a creature. You can attack with it, and it'll give another creature control flying. So basically, if you're playing a commander that really wants to get through it, say a Voltron deck again, this can kind of do a bad impersonation of Rogue's Passage to get some form of evasion.
Absolutely.
Well, so.
And I mean, this can hit decently hard too. If you roll that 6, this is hitting for 6 in the air. So
And it protects itself from board wipe, since it's it's not until end of
it
does
until
until
turn. Yeah, it says until end of turn.
So it's kind of like a vehicle in that way.
Yep. So it's just a really interesting mana rock I never thought I'd see, but
an insect artifact, so Grist might want it.
There you go.
Insect tribal, here we go.
Oh, yep. Okay, so here we go. The last card, Under Dark Rift. Why don't you take this one?
Sure. It's just a land, not a basic land. It's a colorless land, so Kozilek might want it. 5 and tap and exile Underdark Rift. When you do that, you roll a d10. You put target artifact, creature, or planeswalker into an opponent's library just beneath the top X cards of that library, where X is the result. Activate only as a sorcery. Your favorite 5 words.
I think that's probably necessary in this. Definitely necessary on this one, on this land. Yeah, I have been harping on kind of the activate only sorcery for other things, mostly some commanders. Regardless, this card is actually, I mean, it's a decent utility card for, again, a colorless deck or a mono-color deck that can probably utilize it. I mean, you can, put their creature pretty deep down in that deck. If you roll anything, 5 or above, they're not going to be getting back to that creature for quite a while.
Yeah, I think...
or artifact or planeswalker, I should say.
It does only tap for colorless, so that's obviously a knock against it. It's not like it is... You can choose a color or something like that. If you're in, anything more than a 3+ color deck, it gets hard to run colorless utility lands.
I was going to say, I'm thinking with this one, if you're in colorless or if you're in a monocolor deck, is probably when you're going to be considering this card.
Yeah, I don't think it'll be that expensive. I'm probably going to eat my words here, but
I don't think so either.
It is pretty broad. You can get artifacts, creatures, or planeswalkers. Obviously not going to hit enchantments, not going to hit other lands, things like that. I think, yeah, it's.
I mean, you are losing the land when you do this. You know,
Yes.
essentially it's costing you 6 mana to do this because you have to tap this as well. So you're losing on that mana.
Yep.
And then you permanently lose this land. So there is a decent cost to it, but it is nice to have that effect on a land. Obviously, just giving extra utility to that for a card that's not really taking a base slot in your deck that can deal with quite a few things. Again, if you're playing against, I mean, what color has problems dealing with artifacts? What, black?
Yep.
Yeah, this gives you another option if you're playing a mono black deck to actually take out an artifact.
Yep. I think that's definitely fair. It's interesting that it gets rid of planeswalkers.
I didn't expect that part either.
Yeah,
So if you've got a friend that's got a Super Friends deck, have fun.
Yeah.
I mean, you get rid of one of theirs. They've got 10 other ones, but you got rid of one.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of a niche spot, but if you're playing a mill deck and you know that you can like mill 10 or more, you can basically guarantee that you're gonna get that card into the graveyard.
Absolutely. Phoenix decks rejoice.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, interesting card. I think it has its homes. It's very broad. It's exile again, which is a very
well, it exiles
reliable
itself.
way.
It puts something into a library.
Oh, right, yeah. So it's not.
So yeah, I mean,
exiling the creature,
it gets rid of. I mean, it gets around indestructibility though too, or regeneration, which is kind of based like exile. And so yeah, or if you make them shuffle their library, then it's just gone.
Yep. So neat card.
It does have its places, but yeah, I think. And again, we might eat our words. I might eat my words, but I think the only good decks are going to consider it are colorless decks and then monocolor decks. Yeah. I don't know if you're going to be kind of really working hard to get this in a 2-color plus deck.
Yeah, there's so many colorless utility lands out there. There's Reliquary Tower, there's War Room, Scavenger Grounds. Like it's fighting for a space that's pretty heavily populated with some really good cards, tried and true. So,
but some decks that can utilize a lot of those lands can consider it.
Yeah, Kozilek, I think any of the colorless.
Yeah, you're like, yeah, I'll take that.
Yeah.
And then Voidmere comes into play and you lose.
Yep.
I think that's it though, right?
Yeah, that's all for this
16?
deck. So that's the Rakdos deck.
Precon, whatever it's called. Use your imagination. Whatever you'd like to call it is its name.
These are the cards that will not be in Adventures Forgotten Realms. These are cards that will only appear in the Precon. So if you like any of them, that's where you'll find them.
Yep. Yeah. And again, I'm sure the rest of the Precon deck is very nice. So yeah, make sure you check out the rest of the full deck somewhere else. Sorry, we're not covering that.
Better luck next time.
Better luck next time. Anyways, thank you, Eddie, for popping over today and
you got it.
And record this with me. So yeah, and as always, thanks again and have a good one.